There it is. A little delayed.
Morning. Of course, the Black History Month. How are you? It's been a while. Happy New Year. I know it's February. Larry Davis said you only get 3 days. How are you, buddy? How are you? Wonderful to see you. Good. Nice to see you. Appreciate you guys. Oh, yeah, anytime. You doing well, I hope? Yeah. Good. What I think. Good. You know, I won't say staying out of trouble. You know, that's what we do here. We hope at my age I still get into trouble. That's right. Good trouble. John Lewis, R.I.P., right? I got your note. Okay. And I'll get back to you later. All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it looks like that might work. Better. Yeah, it could be, you know. Except for of course. Yeah. My glasses. The light doesn't matter. Yeah, they got letters. HUD management, they're in trouble. They got that letter. I heard that Education department. Letters all over. A lot of letters. That's why I don't check my email. I won't get a letter. But you know, a lot of the money ends up at university. So. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a. But again, not most of the poor understand how these things work. And then it's funny how going to the, they think it's not. It's not how this works. When you get a pay raise, you it doesn't work that way. Sales tax not going down. Again, education, K to 12, problematic. You know, that's came that realization. You know, it's K to 12. Most people don't go to college. Okay, that's fine. Your level of show up higher. Now we see it. K to 12. Now let's get individuals in there. I'm a great intention. If you don't pass this test, I'm out. Sure. I get it.
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
If you have a cell phone, if you could please silence it, it'll be greatly appreciated. And Zoomers, please stay muted. Rick Gold is here to introduce our speaker for today.
Thanks so much, Pam. This is the course called Heritage Month or Heritage Day celebrations. And we've been celebrating both heritage and history of different ethnic and religious groups. But, you know, as you understand, we've entered a very different era with the inauguration of President Trump, and particularly his efforts to fight diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as part of diversity and equity inclusion, businesses and governments, organizations have been celebrating heritage months and participating in assuring that the various identities of their workers and those they serve are celebrated. Well, let me read to you the recent guidance from the Secretary of Defense. The title is Identity Months Dead at DOD. Our unity and purpose are instrumental to meeting the department's warfighting mission. Efforts to divide the force, to put one group ahead of another, erode camaraderie, and threaten mission execution. Going forward, DoD components and military departments will not use official resources, to include man-hours, to host celebrations or events related to cultural awareness months, including National African American Black History Month, Women's History Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride Month, National Hispanic Heritage Month, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and National American Indian Heritage Month. Service members and civilians remain permitted to attend these events in an unofficial capacity outside of duty hours. Installations, units, and offices are encouraged to celebrate the valor and success of military heroes of all races, genders, and backgrounds as we restore our warrior culture and ethos. We're proud of our warriors and their history, but we will focus on the character of their service instead of their immutable characteristics. So that gives you a feel for the way things are going. And you know, what perhaps many of you thought was a nice thing to talk about, the heritage of so many different Americans, can be so heavily politicized. Well, this month is Black History Month, and President Trump actually issued a declaration for it. And this is how he approaches it. Today, I'm very honored to recognize February 2025 as a National Black History Month. Every year, National Black History Month is an occasion to celebrate the contributions of so many Black American patriots who have indelibly shared our nation's history. Throughout our history, Black Americans have been among the country's most consequential leaders, shaping the culture and political destiny of our nation in profound ways. American heroes such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Thomas Sowell, Justice Clarence Thomas, and countless others represent what's best in America and her citizens. Their achievements, which have monumentally advanced the tradition of equality under the law in our great country, continue to serve as an inspiration for all Americans. We'll never forget the achievements of American greats like Tiger Woods, who have pushed the boundaries of excellence in their respective fields, paving the way for others to follow. This National Black History Month, as America prepares to enter a historic golden age, I want to extend my tremendous gratitude to Black Americans for all they've done to bring us to this moment, and for the many future contributions they will make as we advance into a future of limitless possibility under my administration. So, thank you again for attending. Today we're going to be discussing both Black History Month and Juneteenth. Our speaker is Dr. David Canton. He's director of the African American Studies Program and associate professor of history at the University of Florida. He graduated with a BA in history from Morehouse College, received his MA in Black Studies from the Ohio State University, and PhD in history from Temple University. Professor Canton is the author of Raymond Pace Alexander, a new Negro lawyer fights for civil rights in Philadelphia. The biography examines Alexander's role in the civil rights struggle in Philadelphia from the New Negro to the Black Power era. His book won the 2011 W.B. Du Bois Book Award from the Northeast Black Studies Association. He's also the co-author of Radioactive, a memoir of advocacy and action on the air and in the streets, a book that examines Joe Madison's career as a talk show host and civil rights activist. He teaches courses on the Black freedom struggle, civil rights struggle in the North, history of hip-hop music and culture, and introduction to African American studies. His African American history class was featured on C-SPAN American History Television, and he's published short essays on racism, poverty, and the lack of African American players in Major League Baseball. He joined the University of Florida's African American Studies program after teaching at Connecticut College in the Department of History between 2003 and 2020. Dr. Canton?
Good morning, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me here. This is my second time here. I think y'all recruit me for a spot when I retire. Yeah, so we know I'm gonna talk about Juneteenth. It's the first presentation. The second will be on Black History Month. And I'd like to comment on what President Trump said about Black History Month. And again, history is an interpretation of facts. Right? People don't, we are another historian, and people just don't understand that, right? We've been told it's these dates. Remember in school, you had matching, you had 10 names, and you matched to a date? That's why most folks hate history. I can't remember all those dates. Most historians don't know all these dates, believe it or not. We kind of know it's an era, but exact dates, there's some things you know, like April 4th, 1968, Dr. King's assassination, some things, but a lot of stuff, we may know the year, be off one or two, but that doesn't mean you're not a historian. Because you run into people in the street, I'm a history buff, they throw all these dates, and if you know that date, they actually think you're not a historian. So we get to Black History Month, Frederick Douglass, okay, right? We know Frederick Douglass, but do we really know Frederick Douglass? Have you read his stuff? Most people probably not. Harriet Tubman, do we really know Harriet Tubman? Probably not. But the flip is now you have Thomas Sowell, a Black conservative economist, and Clarence Thomas. In reality, is many Black conservatives don't support Black History Month, right? We're all Americans. And then Tiger Woods, come on, good guy, but that's not his thing. He's been in the game, what, 30 years? I haven't heard him say anything about anyone. So this was all intentional. You see what I mean, right? You could have named even Jackie Robinson or, I don't know, a current athlete who dibbles and dabs with some level of, you know, political advocacy, okay? So that's the context we're in right now. But, you know, as a historian, these things are cyclical, right? These things, it's like the stock market. okay? So therefore, people have been down this road before, but it's cyclical. So we'll see what happens. So up first, I'm a historian, chronology, right? Juneteenth, okay? Oh, I got control? Yep, thank you. All right, prequel to Juneteenth, okay? 1861, 1865, we know Civil War. 4-year war, 700,000 dead, right? More soldiers died in this war than every war the United States fought combined. I love numbers. Put stuff in context. Most people don't know, okay? Causes of the war. For some, it's still a debate. States' rights, slavery, or northern aggression. Still a debate, even among some scholars, right? History, like science, is a debate among scholars, right? Which can be put off as elitist, condescending, but that's what we do. But from what I've read, from my interpretation, it was states' rights to practice slavery. Now, you can disagree. That's what historians do, right? But when you read the 1860 South Carolina secession, it's about slavery. We have a right, because chattel slavery property, to decide what to do with our property, right? It wasn't about driver's, well, there's no car, driver's license. It wasn't about education rules, right? There's no public education in the South. It was about chattel property, okay? Nevertheless, we even realized that General Robert E. Lee, they tried to get him on the northern side, but he was loyal to Virginia, okay? War starts 1861. We know that in the upper South part, Lee was running through. He was winning a lot of wars. There was on the early first 2 years, the South was winning. Lee did his thing, okay? We also know what's happening, that many former slaves, when the war started, according to Du Bois, the Black Reconstruction, they left. When that war started, they left because in their mind, this is about slavery. I'm out of here. They just dropped and left. Because again, in our imagination, how we see slavery, it doesn't add up in our brains, right? That these folks, because again, what they call the grapevine, information was going through the plantations. Folks can think, because again, we don't see slaves as human beings with brains, right? Many of them could read more than we like to believe, because you don't tell people you can read. Can you read? Nah, right? You feign you're ignorant. So when the word got, many left, was going up to the north, but by law had to be returned, right? Because they were still, because Abraham Lincoln was a politician, okay? Then what happened when they started seeing the South using slaves as laborers to build, okay, no, that gives them a labor advantage. This got to stop. Then it became contraband wars. And then even before the war started, there's black folks who were drilling free blacks, let's get in. Nah, you can't do that. Just like the Revolutionary War, black men were denied getting in. Then that would change after the Lord Dunmore Proclamation, 1775, right? So again, interest convergence, right? We have an interest, we want to win, convergence, let them in, right? And then when the black soldiers got in, they got paid less because they're black. That's just how racism works. But I'm gonna take the money, right? Because on the backside, when we win, you owe me something. Okay, that's the game, that's politics, that's history, that's how this thing goes. All right, September, we need a win. Battle of Antietam, that's in Maryland. All right, most folks, that's in Maryland. September, there's a victory. There's Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, 13th president, honest Abe, 6'4", tallest president, okay? He releases the Emancipation Proclamation. It did not end slavery. Please, that's the biggest myth. Most people believe that. It did not end slavery. But it was a war measure. It allowed black men to join, 185,000 black male troops. You saw the movie Glory, Denzel Washington, right? Okay. But in areas of the South that was controlled by the North, you still had slavery, okay? Right? Then also you got the border states, right? Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and West Virginia, who fought for the North but still had slavery. You can do two things at once, folks. History is nuance. But we don't like yes or no. We don't like that. That's too messy, right? Good guys, bad guys. It's more complicated than that, right? But that's how we're taught K through 12. There's winners, there's losers, there's good, there's bad, right? There's always nuance, okay? So January 1st, 1863, it kicks in. We have what's called the watch night service that black folks still do today in churches across America. They get in about 10 o'clock, sing songs, pray, testimonies. January 1st, 1863, boom, that thing hits. Right? You still see that in a lot of black churches. Okay? The watch night. Okay? Important proclamation. The slaves and rebels proclaimed free. There goes Frederick Douglass, who went to the White House during the war to speak with Lincoln. Okay? Douglass, what I call the first unofficial black president of black people. Wrote 3 autobiographies, self-taught, didn't go to college. Right? I got a PhD, still have more writings than I do. Right? Newspaper editor, okay, friends with John Brown, right? Longtime Republican, escaped slavery, taught himself to read. You know the story. And of course, we have Harriet Tubman, recent movie, ex-slave, all these trips from Maryland to Pennsylvania by herself, $40,000 on her head. Brave, was a spy for the Union Army. Why? She knew all the back roads. Okay? Of course, they were shouted out for Black History Month, but do we know what they are? We just know the basics. They were former slaves. Have we read their works? Probably not. Have we read Douglass's passion when Southern Confederates would capture black soldiers and treat them like slaves and not prisoners of war? He was angry. We need to do something about that. He had to calm down. You're not going to read that, right? You're going to read his what? Success story, right? How he made it. That's the American exceptionalism, right? That's because we want to feel good. I know who wants to feel bad, all right? So now we have that. So that's like the watch night service. So we see that every year in a lot of black churches across the country, probably more so African American. Because remember, black people, diaspora, you have people whose parents from the continent, from Jamaica, different things, right? But most African American Baptist and Methodist churches have these watch night services, traces back to here. Next slide, please. Memorial Day, okay? May 1st, 1865. So now, history is about debates. So if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see someone would say Memorial Day was, created by white soldiers, right? But then we'll say that it was created by black soldiers May 1st, 1865. So again, it's a debate. Who's right, who's wrong, right? I mean, that's the reality. Just like we talk about naming institutions, fort bases, these symbols matter. What are you told as a kid? Don't let the flag what? Hit the ground, right? It's just a piece of cloth. Symbols matter. Colors, product placement, it's all psychology. You see? So who creates something matters. For a lot of Italian Americans, Indigenous Day is offensive. Matters, right? You see what I mean? Martin Luther King Day holiday, right? Juneteenth, that's gonna be in the news when it comes through this year, right? Symbols, things matter to human beings, okay? So we have here in South Carolina, Martyrs of the Race Course. Go ahead and play Colonel Bernard. Click on that, please. This is a few years ago.
Memorial Day
years ago.
was first commemorated of black organized slaves after less than a month surrender. Recent years, the origins of how and where
Yep. Okay, there it goes. Click that. Oh, they're playing like 50 times. Click that. Click that. Yep. Click that. Click that. Okay, here we go. That's going. Now go back to the beginning. Scroll it back. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. All right, here we go. Now hit play. And turn it up. Yep. Here we go. All right, here we go. Next stop there. Back to the presentation. Yep, stop. Yep. All right, and then get back to that. Okay, go slide. Next slide. Good, stop there. Okay, a debate amongst historians. David Blight's a colleague of mine at Yale University, written a biography on Frederick Douglass, great scholar. And he's a white guy. So the whole debate, who could do what, it's all about interpretation, right? So nevertheless, according to David Blight, these black soldiers or former vets, organized for Memorial Day that we celebrate in May every year, okay? So again, who gets credit? Who's right? Who's wrong? That's what scholars do, okay? So that's why this matters, right? For a lot of people, it doesn't matter. But for some people, they're passionate about it, right? All right, so the last point on this also is, what was I gonna say? Now I'm throwing off. Okay, the last point I was gonna say, Andersonville, in Georgia, right? It's a prison, 30,000 Union soldiers, okay? The only person convicted of war crimes ran that prison, a German guy. I think his last name's Schultz. There's a video, there's a movie, treated them folks like trash. Horrible. Forget about, there's no Geneva Convention stuff. This one you can just treat, if you're a prisoner, you lucky if you eat once a month. We don't care. No AC, it rains, it's a mess. It's right up 75. I pass it all the time way to Atlanta, see my daughter at Spelman. I'm gonna stop and take the tour, okay? Andersonville. You can go online, there's a movie they made about it, prison. So again, only one person, prisoner of war. So again, it's a debate. Were the generals of the South should be committed for treason? That's the debate. Because one would argue, if you do the same thing, you go to jail. But then you get into the whole debate about January 6th. Oh, I'm getting in trouble. I know I'm gonna say it. All right, it's all about interpretation, right? It's all interpretation. For some people, Robert Lee should be locked up. For others, he's a hero. Who's right, who's wrong? Right? You see? January 6th, for some people, they're heroes. For others, they're not. Who's right, who's wrong? For some people, Black Lives Matter, they're courageous. For others, they're criminals. Who's right, who's wrong? That's how these things work, right? That's why I think people in sciences don't like us. We're not science. H2O is water, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. That's easy, right? 8 plus 8, 16, right? Wherever you go, right? But that's not how human beings function. We're not wired that way. We're more complicated, right? We're more complicated. You see? We're not science, right? If there's a hole in the ground and 1,000 people walk, someone's gonna go check in that hole, right? There might be money down there. Who knows? That's what human beings, right? Someone's gonna do it, trust me, because we're human beings. Dave, there's money down there. I don't know. Then I'm a man when I get that money, right? That's how we're wired. Okay, next slide, please. We're getting there. Juneteenth. So the war ends, Appomattox, April 4th, I think 1865. Surrender. Okay. We know in this state, May 20th, 1865, Emancipation Day. There's a big event in Florida every year, Gainesville, May 20th to Juneteenth here. I didn't know that coming to Florida, I realized. So again, you have national history, then there's state's history, then there's local history. And this is my 5th year in town learning about the local history, right? I'm from the Bronx originally, right? So again, it's funny, when I got to my first job at Georgia Southern, you don't think about the Civil War in the Bronx. I got down here, everyone's really, okay, right? Didn't get it. Then I got down here, oh, wow, I see, right? So, Juneteenth, what happens? In fact, my birthday is June 17th. That's my week. I got Father's Day, my birthday, Juneteenth. I take the whole week off. I take the whole week off, right? All right. So, 1865's April, okay? War ends. But again, in Texas, remember, so here's like DC, Texas, remember, there's no social media, there's no TikTok. Information takes a long time to get places, right? Takes a while. So June 19th, this is Galveston, it's an island off of Texas. They have a great spring break party for the young people, if you didn't know. Okay. We have, what's his name? Granger, General Order number 3. Okay. June 19th, Emancipation Day, Freedom Day. all right? The Union soldiers landed in Galveston, Texas, that slavery ended. April, May, June, about 3 months later, okay? Big celebration, African Americans, all right? But we also know, like anything else, it ebbs and flow. It ebbs and flow, right? So it was a huge event. Then we see by the 30s, by the civil rights movement, kinds of decreasing. Everyone's focused on Jim Crow civil rights. Okay, next slide, please. Then we see Texas makes it a state holiday. Remember, there's federalism and the states' rights, right? So states, right, can make their own rules. Most people don't understand that either, but that's how it happens, okay? Why in Texas? Makes sense. Galveston, not New York, not Jersey, right? We also, after World War II, and black folks migrated from the South, they took that to what? LA, right? West Coast, because of the migration. So you bring your culture with you. My parents from the West Indies, never heard of Juneteenth. Wasn't taught in school. So my parents from the West Indies, I don't know about no Juneteenth, right? Even the foods. West Indians don't do soul food. But again, we're just black. We're just one monolith. We don't understand. We're not taught this in school, okay? So I didn't know about it growing up. I had no clue about it. But for a long time, African Americans been fighting for this for years. Just like Dr. King Day. Black folks been fighting for that the day after he was assassinated. So that story always gets missed, the grassroots organization. Same with Juneteenth. Because when Biden signs the bill, we take a top-down approach and don't know the historical bottom-up. Regular people push people in power to make things change, right? You think Biden just woke up. It doesn't work that way. There's folks on the ground, you'll never know their name. They're not on CNN, not on MSNBC, right? Same with Juneteenth. A lot of black folks been pushing this for years. You never know who they are. Now, black folks know who they are, okay? Now, all of a sudden, we have other states having a state holiday, okay? Then Lyft, Spotify. Now, we'll see this year what happens. It's going to be interesting. Department of Defense said, hey, we're done with all that stuff. It's going to be interesting how this is handled this year. Okay, we'll see what happens in the conversation. Next slide, please. So, we talk about history and memory. What is history? People say history is agreed upon lies. I don't agree with that. Is it propaganda? What is propaganda? Is propaganda all good? Is it all bad? What is it? Right? What is propaganda? What is history and what is memory? What's the difference? David Blight, who I mentioned earlier, talks about this with Civil War, the Civil War history, right? There's memory and then there's history, right? History's interpretation of facts using archival information, data, census reports, newspapers. Memory is what we believe, right? So we interview older African Americans, and I tell young people all the time, they're gonna tell you that life was better for black people during the 50s. That's what they'll tell you, right? Okay, now when I tell them, what was the poverty rate? I don't know, okay. How many folks went to college? I have no idea. Size of the middle class? I don't know. Black mortality rates? No clue, right? But the memory is, when I went to East Gainesville, I saw my dry cleaner, my barber, my realtor, my doctor, my dentist. There was a black professional class. My social institutions, right, were well attended because you couldn't go anywhere else. Context. And that's your memory. When I went to school, I had black teachers that loved me. Okay, well, what was the graduation rates? You're telling me no kids were bad? I don't believe that, right? That's memory. History is, because of the civil rights movement, black folks are doing better, lowest poverty rates, more PhDs, more med degrees. So it's an interesting dynamic. History and memory. Civil War, there's history and Reconstruction. Du Bois's classic, 850 pages, right? No computer, no internet, no research assistant, all by himself. How do you do that? Right? No internet. He wrote another classic called Philadelphia Negro, 1899. I saw the cards he used to interview black people except for War of Philadelphia. No internet, no computer, just a typewriter, and enthusiasm and brains. Brilliant, okay? In this book, there's a chapter called Propaganda of History, based on Civil War Reconstruction. Reconstruction, told by the Dunning School of Historians in Columbia, was a failure. He says, wait a minute. Reconstruction created the first democracy. Why? Public education in the South. Remember, there were no public schools in the South because we want what? An uninformed labor force, black and white. Yes? Yeah. I want people who can't read so I can rip them off. But I'm white too, don't matter. All right? That's how capitalism works. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. He sounds like he's anti. I'm just telling facts. It's business. We're here to make money, right? I think. Are we sure? I think so, right? Okay, so Reconstruction created public education in the South, right? Okay, but we see now, recently, teaching critical race theory and all. Bob said, but real quick, as we know, critical race theory was not taught K through 12. It's not. You went to high school. It's a legal thing. It's taught in law school, a little sprinkled in undergrad, mostly law school. But nevertheless, for some people, that's what they think. I don't know what to tell them, right? So we look at Juneteenth, right? The reality is that it's a federal holiday as a response to what? The George Floyd stuff. So again, that's how history works, right? Where people organize, things happen, then we have legislation. It's unfortunate that's what it took, the murder of African American, but that's historical, right? I mean, human beings, we're crisis people, right? We do things in crises. That's a lot of us. Oh, we got to do something. So as we know, it's an official holiday. So the last two official federal holidays, Martin Luther King and Juneteenth, there's probably people mad about that, right? There's people mad. They're two holidays, African Americans. This folks probably mad about that, even though they get the day off, right, with pay. See, can't satisfy everybody, can you? All right, so that's Juneteenth, okay? That's the history, all right? So because of people pushing, getting the information out there, now we know what it is, we understand it, but we also know how capital works. It becomes another day of money for corporations, right? Get your Juneteenth blanket, your Juneteenth Kool-Aid, right? It becomes another business thing. That's what we do in this country, right? We market everything. Okay, I get it. I'm not forced to buy anything, but we get that. But nevertheless, it's on the conscience of America. It'll be interesting this year when it pops up what happens. I know that, because I'm not a big Twitter person, I know there's going to be back and forth on social media about, I don't know about getting rid of it, why do we have it, blah, blah, blah. But I know that's coming, right? Okay? But I know to get rid of the holiday is congressional. That's a big debate. Is it worth the energy? But definitely there'll be some banter back and forth. So now that we have Juneteenth, we're going to turn to Black History Month. Okay? Yes. All right. So Black History Month has a long history. Right? Here we go. All right. Yep. Then you can go to the next slide. First slide. There we go. Oh, you good. Look at her. We're going to definitely, all right. What is Black history? Or what is history, right? We know all human beings have a history, whether it's written down or orally, right? For a lot of traditions, history was spread down through word of mouth. Even ancient Greeks weren't writing stuff down, or they were talking. It was oral. When people started writing stuff down, you sure you want to write stuff down? We're going to lose, right? Just like we're saying our students can't write cursive, right? You're losing something, okay? So for many historians, cultures that just spoke, that's not real history. It's not objective, because you don't remember everything. When you write stuff down, 1866 at 4 o'clock is more accurate than, well, I think it was 5. I think it was Monday. I knew it was sometime last week. I think you're making up. He didn't jump that high. Where's the photo? You're making that up. But nevertheless, all human beings have a history. I don't care how smart your dog is, they don't have a history. We love animals. We think, no, they don't write, or they don't. I'm telling you, right? They just don't. I don't care how much them whales are speaking to you, they don't have a history. That's what happened last week. They can't tell you. What happened 2 weeks ago? They don't know, right? So let's clear that. We got that out the way. Number two, we know in the Western tradition, right, Western historiography, and because of slavery, they believed Black people had no history, which because they weren't viewed as human beings. Well, it makes sense. If you believe they're inferior, believe they're different, believe they're not this, then they don't have a history. Okay? That was the belief for a long time in Western universities. Not by quote unquote toothless rednecks, air quote. These were trained scholars. Harvard, Yale, Columbia, right? If you went into that classroom and said black folks had history, you get an F. You're a lunatic. It's like saying the world is flat, but I think people believe that now, right? So there's a whole movement now. You know that, right? Flat Earth people, you can buy Flat Earth t-shirts. Go online, look them up. Follow the money, right? Okay? But nevertheless, black people always knew they had history. So again, everything's about perspective, right? While one side is saying this, there's black people saying that's a bunch of, I'm gonna keep it above board, nonsense, okay? So when does this start? So we know in this culture, in this country, one of the earliest pieces of history was 1817, a search for truth and an inquiry for the origin of the African nation. What they did was they cited the Bible and Greek sources. People like Socrates, not Socrates, what's that guy? The early historian from the Greeks. I'm slipping his name right now. Yes, Herodotus, correct, who went down the Nile, was in the continent. They would just cite them. This isn't me speaking. These are white guys speaking, talking about black people. So it must be true because white people don't lie, right? They go to the Bible, the same sources that Europeans, classical sources they were using to make a case of African origins of humanity, to dismiss others, right? David Walker, famous black abolitionist out of North Carolina, Wilmington, in Appeal, 1829, talking about white Christianity in the hypocrisy. His book would be put on ships to the South for black people to read. Had a bounty on his head for $40,000, $50,000. He died mysteriously in Boston. All right, now conspiracy people say, but nevertheless, that was a piece of history. So in other words, black people are reading, black people are writing, right? 1836, Robert Benjamin Lewis, Light and Truth. Also, there's slave narratives. A whole bunch of them come out, okay? 1883, George Washington Williams, History of the Negro Race. Now, he's not a quote-unquote trained historian, but it's history of black people. So they're not waiting for Harvard and Yale. They're doing it themselves, agency. Okay, we think you have no history? I'm gonna write this thing. 2 volumes. All right. Next, Daniel Barclay Williams, a textbook. Remember, you got segregated schools. So we're not gonna use a white history textbook that says black people have no history. We got our own textbooks. So again, one of the things about segregation, black people were allowed to do their own thing, right? Your own rules, your own history textbooks, your own interpretations, right? When deseg happened in the 60s and 70s, you got to change the rules of the game, right? Now you're going into a white institution, you got to play by those rules. That book in the trash. You want to get in, right? You want access to these resources, don't you? Okay, throw that stuff out, right? That doesn't work here. You see? That's how these institutions work, right? Dr. Ken, you're being so critical. That's how systems work. Let's be honest, folks, right? Institutions. Well, these are good. I don't know good, bad. I don't get into all that. I don't know you, right? If I'm a teacher in the school, this is the rule. I want my paycheck. I'm following the rule. So when the black kids come to the white school, these books, throw them all out. What you learn, that's gone. We're doing it this way. White American history. Real American, air quotes, history. You see? All right, next slide, please. Okay, we have black newspapers. 1827, Freedmen's Journal, first black newspaper. Okay, and I'm gonna read their famous quote. Okay, I think something like, for too long, others have spoken for us. Time to speak for ourselves. All right, 1827. Hit that thing again. I think I got Frederick Douglass in there. Is that coming in? Hit the slide. Huh. There we go, Freedmen's Journal, 1827, lasted 3 years. They have black newspapers, okay, recording the history of the race. I'm not waiting for New York Times. They think I'm ignorant anyway, right? So again, that's the whole conversation here now with the post-Trump world, right? That black people, you know what, let's disinvest, black businesses, black newspapers, black. But again, it's a little more complicated than 19th century. Right? You live all over the place. It's a little more complicated. Not impossible, but difficult and complicated. You see? But during this time, okay, we get our own newspapers. Next, hit the next one, please. I believe, yeah, just hit next. I think Douglas is going to come up. Yes, the North Star, Frederick Douglass newspaper. Okay, very influential abolitionist movement. His first paper was The Mystery with Martin Delany out of Pittsburgh, 1843. Starts his own paper. Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison had a debate. They had a breakup, right? For William Lloyd Garrison, I'm going to end slavery through moral suasion. I'm going to appeal to your humanity. Dave, you own 200 people. It's wrong. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're free. Stop. Right? Moral suasion. Now, Dr. King, through nonviolence direct action, kind of years later, that's what the strategy was, right? That through nonviolence, the bad person, while I'm beating you to death, oh, wow, this is wrong. Okay, I get it. But Douglass said, we got to take slavery to politics and policy, right? Not just moral suasion, it's about politics, Mr. Garrison. But then Garrison says the Constitution is a covenant of death. So the white guy who wasn't enslaved was less optimistic than the black guy who was enslaved. Let's use these documents to demonstrate freedom. Interesting. It's ironic, right? It's the white guys who should be praising the Constitution, the founding fathers. No, he's saying, Doug, you're lying to yourself, brother. What are you talking about? No, rights being equal, the preamble, all that stuff applies to everybody. So I'm going to create the North Star, right? Black newspapers have a lot of black history in them, even though they're not called history books. Next slide, please. That's Frederick Douglass there. He was the most photographed American in the 19th century. So again, the power of what? Images. He understood that. You see? Go to the next one. There we go. It's not just a male thing. So again, when I say African American, I'm saying male and female. So women, Female Literacy Society, Philadelphia, right? Hartford, okay? Here we go. Layla Amos Pendleton, Narrative of Negro, textbook. Okay, so again, everybody's on board, right? Middle-class black people collecting books, bibliophiles, newspapers. They know they have a history. They know they're full human beings, and they know slavery and racism are evil. They know that the Christianity practiced by slaveholders is not Christianity of Christ, according to Frederick Douglass, right? So they're not going to wait, beg, please, New York Times, publish this. Man, I'm going to do it ourselves. All right. So again, these are the seeds of the history movement. Okay, no PhDs yet. The first African to get a PhD in history was W.E.B. Du Bois at Harvard in 1895. He even studied in Berlin. Du Bois is just brilliant, from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Now, you see his name wasn't mentioned in Trump's thing, was it? Right? One of the smartest people in world history. Somehow he wasn't mentioned. I wonder why. Right? It's an interpretation. You see? Tiger Woods, Du Bois. I apologize, Du Bois. You put him in the same camp. My bad, Du Bois. I'm sorry. That's insulting. Put him with most people. Go online, type it in, see all the stuff he's done. And he died in Ghana like the day before the March on Washington. He was 90-something years. His stuff, when you go to Ghana, you can see his robes. He's buried in Ghana. Okay, he left. He was upset he left. So that's another reason, he's not championed by a lot of folks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, bibliophiles, people that love collecting books. Those books form the basis of what I do. The Schomburg, Arturo Schomburg, Black Puerto Rican bibliophile, collected books in Schomburg Library in Harlem, 131st Street, where I do my research because of him. The Bloxon collection in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Charles Bloxon. I knew him, he just passed recently, okay? Collection. So these bibliophiles collected books about black people, okay? Not trained historians yet, okay? But they would go in, use their collections to study Woodson and Du Bois. You see? Okay. Next, he said, you know what? Him and a guy named John Edward Bruce founded the Negro Society for Historical Research, an organization. We come by, we read books. Young people don't like to read now. It's like oxymoronic, reading books, right? I struggle with that, my young people, right? They just want to click and slide, okay? So 1911, so you have these there's one in Philadelphia, bibliophiles. So it's happening in a lot of major cities across the country. So whenever I talk about an area, it's happening in Atlanta. Wherever it is black people, urban space, you have these dynamics. Literate, smart, educated, what they call race men and race women, okay? We are not gonna stand by and let folks say we're not human beings, we're inferior, and all this other nonsense, all right? We're doing something about it. But the downside is information doesn't get into white schools, and that's the whole conflict we have with DEI, right? So the same person, when it goes DSEGS, they don't know any of this, literally don't know any of it, which is the same problem we have today. Let's just be honest. All right? Think about when you left high school, how much we didn't know. Right? I was the honor kids in the Bronx, 80% black school. I never heard of Du Bois. That's criminal. Somebody should be arrested. Literally, should be arrested. I know he was, till college. Du Bois, come on. Okay, King, but I only knew one part of King, the I Have a Dream King. King has a whole other thing going on that most of us don't want to talk about. You know, the day he was assassinated, he's like one of the most hated people in America because he was critical of the war, right? I didn't know that. That's how it works, all right? Okay. Next up, please. Here we have the father of black history, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, born in West Virginia. No, in Virginia, I'm sorry, okay, 1875. He didn't start high school, he was 20. He's working coal mines. But guess what? There was a black Union soldier who had books in his house. That became his fascination with history. Union soldier, not a professor, not a doctor, a soldier who collected books. Goes to high school, graduates, Berea College in Kentucky, took black and white students, gets his master's from the University of Chicago, PhD in 1912 from Harvard, the second black man to get a PhD in history from Harvard. Okay, 1912. Okay, Carter G. Woodson teaches at high school, he travels, goes to Egypt, Philippines, all right? But he's obsessed with black history as a way to help fight racism. If I just put down the facts, no, just the facts. This is what happens when people read it, they'll think and change their behavior, right? No need to politicize, like for instance, the 1619 book by Nicole Hannah-Jones. He would say, that's too much. Your claim is too extreme. We don't need that, all right? Just the facts, okay? That's one school of thought. Next slide, please. So Woodson, father of Black History Month. How does it start? I got his BA, PhD. So in 1915, he creates the Association for the Study of African Life and History. Historians have a group called the American Historical Association, 1884. Every professional discipline has a professional organization. Professionalization means what? To be a historian, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, there's certain things you gotta have to be a professional. And in these organizations, we create the rules of conduct. What is scholarship, what is not? So prior to 1884, you could be a historian and not go to school. But now you have professional organizations, there's rules. There's conferences every October, still around today, okay? Next step, we need a journal. American Historical Association have what? The Journal of American History, American Historical Review, right? Where you publish professional papers for your academic peers, right? Peer review. You will read my article, you know, critique it, send it back, boom, we accept it for publication. Because you couldn't get into white journals. You just couldn't get in. Du Bois is lucky he got some stuff in Reconstruction, but hard to get into the white journals, white organizations, okay? Journal of Negro History, 1916, now it's called the Journal of African History, still around. So in that journal, there's articles about African American history done by scholars. But again, here's another trick, right? For many white scholars, they think black scholars can't be objective talking about black people. So this whole notion of objectivity is rooted with race, right? White scholars are objective, black scholars are not objective, right? What is objectivity, right? Okay. The recent, what's the Daniel Penny case, the guy in New York that killed the guy in the subway? His lawyer hired a jury consultant. This woman was hired by Johnny Cochran for the OJ trial, hired by the 4 police in Orange County with Rodney King, and hired by the guy in Wisconsin who shot those dudes at BLM thing. Know what the strategy is? All people have biases. Go figure, right? We all do. Have you heard anything about this case? No, you're a liar. Out, next. You know you've read something? Let's be honest, folks. When they call a jury pool, unless you live on the rock, you know something. You have a bias when you walk in. Whether it's pro-police, critical police, pro-black people, critical, we all do. Her thing is open to evidence. Are you open to listening to another perspective? That's her thing. Her PhD was in sociology and psychology. She studies people. We have biases. We love to think the Supreme Court don't. Stop. We all have them. Let's just admit it, right? But are you open to evidence? Dave, are you open to listening? Well, maybe. I think the behavior was extreme on the train, but I'll listen, right? Or am I locked in? That was wrong. Jury consultant, look her up. Okay, Johnny Cochran. Police in LA harass black people for years. So I need people in there who has some sort of engagement with police on that jury. Come on now, that's her job. Jury consultant, big business, she's rich with a PhD in the humanities. And who says you can't make money? I'm in the wrong field. Never let them stop, right? Next, okay, not just academics, we want to get teachers and young people. So in Asala, most of their base were what? High school teachers. How many folks got PhDs in 1916? 12? Right? There are more black teachers than professors. How many black kids are going to college in 1920? 18? 100? And this is America. Folks don't start hitting college to the 70s. You went to Ford, GM. Y'all know them days. I mean, I'm not, but you know what I mean. Factory jobs. You went out of high school. Your friend made $40,000. You were in college broke, and they laughed at you. Then 10 years later, that factory was gone. Y'all know just what I'm talking about, deindustrialization. You probably got family members, Dave, you're 100% right. Or your family members got in and got out before it collapsed, and they're on their pension now. GM pays most of the money to retirees and health benefits, right? So teachers. So teachers, even to this day, come to these conferences to talk to academics to help them teach their kids with the content. So there's no elitism here. Dr. Dave and blah, blah, and bow down. No, we're educators in this room with a similar mission. So there's no pretense like AHA, Harvard and Columbia. You know how they get. Pretentious, right? With the tweed jacket and stuff on your elbows. Not here. It's like a family reunion. Everybody's on the same page, right? Oh, there goes Dr. So-and-so from Harvard. Oh, who cares? You're Bob, right? How can we help educate people or young people? Okay? Next slide. That's the first issue of the journal, January 1916. Okay? What's that, 120? That's 110 next year. Okay? Cargie Woodson, Negro Cincinnati, part of the Civil War. The next one, Monroe Work, the passing tradition in the African civilization. So a lot of the stuff dealt with blacks in the continent. So this whole 1619 stuff's another interpretation debate. For some African Americans, the history starts what? In the continent when they were free, not 1619 or 1585 in St. Augustine. I shouted them out. I know I'm in Florida, right? It started in West Africa when they were free, own institutions, own language, own social structures. Okay, all right? So again, these historians want to show that Africans had a history that predates the West. So this whole notion now that black people in America and the continent, all this separation, not at this time amongst elites. We have similar histories. But now it's all confused, right? It's African Americans who don't want anything to do with the continent, right? I'm not black. I get it, but, right? Not this time. I'm going to write about African traditions, okay? Here's the other arc, the mind of the African Negro, in Proverbs, again, to the continent. So that's the first one, 1916. He created what's called Associated Publishers that published black scholarship because why? They couldn't get published in white scholarship. So you don't wait and beg, you make it happen. We're going to do our own books. Next slide. And here we go. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated in Black History. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, was part of the Divine Nine, the 9 black Greek letter fraternity sororities. They made a lot of news recently with Kamala Harris, AKA, right? Raphael Warnock's and Alpha, okay? These organizations been around since 1906. Voter registration, food, healthcare, all these different social programs they do in black communities. Carl G. Woodson was an honorary member of my organization in 1917, and in 1920 he gave a talk in Nashville, Tennessee, okay, that inspired the organization to start focusing on black history and education, because that's what Woodson was known for. We must know our history, because we are told we don't have one, like you pointed out. You're dean at West Carolina in 1969, right? And he's educated. That's the scary part. We like to think it's the dude at the gas station, right? Boss Hogg and them. No, it's these Harvard and Yale guys and Columbia. And these are high-level guys, so you don't even get to lower-ranking schools. My God, right? They believe this stuff. So in 1920 to 24, they had Negro History and Literature Week. So that week, Black History, Langston Hughes, you read, Black History, Black Literature. So a commitment to the humanities. I know we love STEM, but look what it's getting us, right? All our kids in the STEM stuff don't like literature, don't read poetry, don't read history, but can tell you about Bitcoin. I still don't know what that is, right? Don't appreciate the arts. You can't make money in it unless you're in the movies or a singer. You see? So we put so much money in the STEM world, we're forgetting about our humanity. And that's why we argue all the time, hate each other. All we know is what? Coding, the algorithms, but we can't even have a conversation. But they recognize the power of the humanities to uplift black people who've been told they're not people, literally. Sambo, what's that? Aunt Jemima, right? The racist caricatures that were on your pancake syrup, Gone with the Wind. Come on now, you seen that stuff still comes on. Man, my blood boils. Oh man, right? Birth of a Nation, 1915, showed in the White House. They might as well bring that back. Because you know, Woodrow Wilson, when he became president, he resegregated the White House in 1913. He fired a whole lot of black federal employees, demoted them, right? And showed Birth of a Nation. So it was a great movie. And he had a PhD, just saying, right? Folks getting mad. Like, I'm just telling, look, I'm like Carl G. Woodson. I'm just telling the facts. Look it up. I don't make stuff up, right? I'm not Joe Rogan. Oh, I'm sorry. Next, Negro History Week, okay, February. First week of February, right? Why February? Not because it's the shortest month of the year. It's the birth month of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. So Woodson did that intentionally, right? Because Lincoln, quote unquote, freed the slaves, a whole nother debate, another time. And of course, Frederick Douglass. So it's celebrated for a week from 26 till 1976. Why? 200th anniversary, Gerald Ford, let's make it a month. And that's why we have Black History Month. Next year will be the 100th anniversary, right? So I'm planning some big stuff at UF, because it should be celebrated. No, 100 years ago, we have this Negro History Week that becomes Black History Month. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of us, we just think Black History Month is these black facts and first, right? Who did this? Who did you feel good? It's not about Chile, that's good, but it's about the central role black people has played in American democracy. not peripheral, central. The central role black people has played in American culture, jazz, blues, hip hop, country music. I know folk get mad, but it's true, right? Rock and roll, Little Richard, Fats Domino, let's go, Chuck Berry. I know there's Elvis, but they're precursors, right? At the center of democracy, civil rights movement, abolitionist movement, the center, you see? But it's just been reduced to facts and feel-good stories. All right, who did this? The first dude to, walk a flight of steps. Okay, that's great. But let's move it to another level. And then let's use it as a way to inspire to what? Keep stuff moving, right? Inspire to, let's keep it moving and do something about it, okay? You see? So that's what we have, African month, 1770. So it's 200 years next February. So it's gonna be huge celebrations. I'm trying to do what I can do because it's monumental, right? You see what I mean? So we gotta keep going with that, use the way to inspire people, and let's move away from, it's separatist, all that. That's not true. We're saying American history is complicated. Everyone's played different roles. We need, as best we can as citizens, to learn this stuff. It really makes a difference in your life. Look at women's history, right? For some men, wow, man, I didn't know that, and change their behavior. Women can be pilots. Women can do all types of things. But that history plays a role. Not here to, make women dominate all of the nonsense, right? It's here that you recognize that women are capable human beings. Just because they use a different bathroom, who cares, right? You see? History, right? Humanities, human beings. That's where I'm at right now. Our common humanity. You see, and if you're not on board with that, I don't know what to tell you. We're gonna have a hard time being friends, right? We're human beings. We all we got, right? When they open up Moon and Mars, I doubt I have enough money to go get an apartment on the moon. I'm not that rich, right? I don't think I'll be up there with them guys. So I got you, I got this one planet. Let's make it happen. Let's make it better, because I don't know what else we can do. I got kids, young people want to make them, they have a decent life. I'm all in for that. Whether it's Juneteenth, Black History Month, Identity Months, whatever it takes to make that common humanity, sign me up, sign me out. Thank you very much. Any questions? It's a good one today. Whew. And it's only what? Wednesday. Any questions? Zoom folks, people in the audience? I solved all the world's problems? Okay.
I have a question
Go
about
ahead.
Biden, who one of his last acts was to pardon Marcus Garvey. Could you talk about the implications of that?
Great question. So Marcus Garvey from Jamaica, right, came here in 1916 to visit Booker T. Washington, his idol. Booker T. Washington created Tuskegee Institute. He went to Hampton Institute in Virginia, born enslaved, wrote the book Up From Slavery, and believed in economic prosperity, right? Black people should focus on getting money. Don't get involved in politics in the South. That will get you killed, even though Booker T. Washington always voted, right? Because he had the resources. So the black elite in the South always voted, but they were just small numbers, but enough to turn elections and local elections, okay? Marcus Garvey in Jamaica, because of colorism, and he's working class, couldn't get into the Jamaican light-skinned elite. Comes to Harlem, a year after Booker T dies, he starts the Universal Negro Improvement Association, okay? Had a newspaper called Negro World with a section written in Spanish and French. Why? Because black people speak those languages. He goes to Panama. Who's building the canal? Jamaicans. He goes to London. Black folks at the bottom. He said, wherever I go, black people are at the bottom, okay? So let me start an organization really based on black people worldwide, 5 million members worldwide. So when Washington dies, Garvey takes the mantle. So you want the Southerners in the South had Garvey was like the next Washington. He had a lot of members in New Orleans, in the South. Not NAACP, which viewed as the middle class organization. It was Garvey. He had parades in Harlem. He had speeches in Madison Square Garden, sold out 20,000. J. Edgar Hoover, your friend, remember J. Edgar Hoover? He was the first on Hoover's list, sent in black agents to spy. Look it up, it's all history. I only teach facts. But he was a capitalist, so it wasn't about him wanting Marxism. He was a black capitalist. It was the fear that all his followers worldwide was a threat, not his ideology. It was his charisma, right? Millions of people. Any other black organization could not get that amount of people. So guess what? Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph, they went in it back and forth in the news, right? They didn't like this guy. He's not a citizen. They went at it dirty. I mean, they went hard. Garvey would call Du Bois some light-skinned guy. I mean, it was deep. They got him on mail fraud, right? And he's not a citizen, okay? Goes to court. Hugh Max, the judge, da-da-da-da-da. Next thing you know, he's deported, to Atlanta prison, kicks out the country, can never come back. Then he realized that you need to get your citizenship right. Anyway, for years, black folks been trying and trying and trying. Even Obama didn't do it, but Joe Biden did, posthumously gave him the pardon, right? But again, what Biden has to lose, good for him. Why did Obama do it? Another critique of Obama by many black folks, right? But Garvey was not a criminal, right? That was all set up. And his son, Julius Garvey's a doctor, been preaching this for years, and it finally happened. Didn't get as much attention because all this other stuff been going on, but that's what happened, and Biden gave the pardon to Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who's buried in London, 1940, and he was broke. It's terrible, right? It's terrible. In fact, Malcolm X's parents were part of the Garvey movement, right? His mother and his father were from the West Indies. Okay, so Garvey's, for many, an underappreciated individual, but very influential, right? You know, in terms of the UNIA, 5 million members across the diaspora. That was fearful in the government. They were fearful of that. But he wasn't talking about socialism and Marx. He was a capitalist, right? Africa for the Africans, okay? Europeans for Europeans. Black Star Line, let's trade with black people, you know, in the diaspora. Create a separate black economy. That's straight Booker T. Washington, okay? But we find out it's more complicated, right? He had some ships. They were a disaster. You know anything about ships, right? Didn't have the capital, right, to do those type of massive things, but definitely, you know, that trial didn't help either. I'll stop there. Great question.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Online, anybody from Zoom, would you like to comment or make a question?
Okay. Solve the world's
You can
problem.
put it in the chat if you don't want to speak. Okay, so I have another question. Could
Go
you
ahead.
talk about the future of Black history in the U.S.?
Well, as we can see, you know, people thought that, I mean, it's not going to get rid of it because it just caused too much backlash. That's why, you know, it's just too much, right? It gets people fired up, whether you're a senior citizen, a young person, or whatever, academics, it's just not worth the trade-off. So that's not going anywhere. The challenge is obviously on the K through 12 level, will our local school districts decide on what's in the curriculum? That's going to be an issue. Even some universities where African studies and these studies are being viewed as a waste of money because you can't, quote unquote, get a job. You know, I just told you about that jury consultant person who's rich, right? Because of STEM stuff, okay? And we see also now there's a push to, you know, go back to the Western classics now, right? Western civ stuff, there's a push, right? That's valuable information for civic engagement that's more valuable than reading Black Reconstruction. So we see in Minnesota, in Jacksonville, Asala has local chapters. They got freedom schools now, just like in the back. So in other words, on the weekend, we're gonna give you some history. So I might see a bigger movement of that, local control, which was preached in the 60s, but now people are seeing, you know what, let's make it real. It takes commitment, get up on a Saturday, 2-3 hours, you know, no one's getting paid, it's all through love, right? But people maybe now say, you know what, we need to commit to this, and they got a grant in Minnesota for $200,000 So you got to have a freedom school that runs all through the academic year. And there's another myth. It's not just open to black people. That's another myth. That's just for black people. No, it's not. White folks can come. They decide not to, right? It's for every, Carter G. Woodson never says only for black people. You find the evidence, show it to me who says that. Are the individuals that believe that? Okay, I don't agree with them. It's for everybody. I want to see Latino and white kids go down to Minnesota on a Saturday and commit. I would love to see that. It's for everybody. So that's why I see a lot of local freedom schools that developing. And, you know, my college still going to write books, do their articles, and, you know, keep pushing it out. But how it goes to the public is going to be a challenge. A lot of it depends on the context as well, right? You know, that could change within one administration, right? So again, it's cyclical, right? You know, for some people, this is what, a cultural war, right? I think that's part of it, right? So if a Democrat comes back in, we'll go back. It's going to be cyclical, right? Because this is an issue that drives some people. Teaching this stuff is against America, while we're saying it's part of America. I don't know what you're talking about. African history is not French history, right? I believe I'm a citizen. I don't know. I could be. Let me check my license, my birth certificate, right? I think I'm a citizen. I put away Social Security, I think, right? You see? So it's about that. So we'll see what happens the next year, next few years or so. But definitely, I think you'll see a growing group of local people saying, you know what? Just like these old folks did, we're not going to wait. We're just going to do it ourselves. Because if you wait, you're going to be disappointed.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I unfortunately missed a big part of your presentation,
Okay.
which I regret. I had a physical problem I had to deal with.
No problem, brother.
You may have covered all of this, so this may be redundant, but I was thinking of the fact that when I was in graduate school, which is a long time ago,
Okay.
the prevailing interpretation of Reconstruction
Mm-hmm.
wasn't all that different from the birth of a nation.
Correct.
And yet, when I read W.E.B. Du Bois' Black Reconstruction,
Mhm.
which was published in the 30s,
1935.
yeah, the year of my birth, I thought, wow, this is so right. And similarly, we always thought of abolition as these very nice New Englanders like Garrison, and yet it turns out that Garrison and a bunch of other colonizationists were converted when they went to old Mother Bethel in Philadelphia
Correct.
for a black conference and said, you know, immediate abolition. That's the issue, not, oh, send them all back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just struck by the fact that part of this is to say that really mainstream American history is permeated with Black history, but for the longest time, we just, oh, no, that goes in the closet. We don't talk about that.
Black history is a hobby. And what we notice, unfortunately, you know, they're usually in schools that are low Title I or underfunded. Like I was in a school in Philadelphia, kids that got kicked out of school, the regular school, they had Black history stuff all over the place. So I think it's viewed as remedial. You know, they can do that, teach whatever you want. But when you get into high resource schools and white schools, it's not in there, right? So unfortunately, it's viewed as remedial, a hobby, keep Black kids happy, but not viewed as how does a white kid from a suburb of Miami, how does this benefit that student? How does that benefit you? That's how we look at it, right? How does it benefit this person? How does it benefit wealthy white students in Beverly Hills knowing about Du Bois' Reconstruction, right? When you teach African history, I teach the Federalist Papers. I teach all that stuff, but the interpretation is from African perspective. This document meant X. How does it benefit you, everybody here? Oh, I see why Black folks are mad. I get it. I may not agree, but at least I get it. And I'm arguing not from ignorance, but from information. That's all I'm saying. But most of us argue out of ignorance. We don't know. And we claim we do. That's what makes me so angry. You're passionate about your ignorance. Have you read anything? No, okay. Right? Did you read so-and-so? No, I heard. Okay. And that's the frustration we have as academics, and doesn't mean you have to have a degree to do that. There have been many smart folks never touched the college classroom, but they understand the rigor, debate, they understand the fundamentals of what we do. But most of us don't. Now I sound elitist, I know, but that's just the reality. We're in the age, as you know, of non-expertise because of podcasting, and anybody can be an expert on anything. Am I right? I know you get frustrated, right? Everyone is on the news. There's no concrete, what the Walter you know what I'm talking. They were trained journalists. Now I pick up a mic, get a podcast. Now I'm a journalist, and don't know anything. But because I got followers, I'm an expert. Then when I say I'm an expert, I'm elitist now. I'm an academic elite who don't allow people to speak their mind. No, I'm an expert. Do you want a dentist fixing your broken leg? Do you want me fixing your car? I will jack it up. You should. I'm gonna fix your car. Let me give it to you. Leave it over here for a week. See what happens. No. Why not? What's the difference? So they devalue what we do as historians. You see, and that makes me frustrated. And we overvalue tech people. Elon Musk. Overvalue tech people, right? And undervalue people who do arts and the humanities. To keep our humanity, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You got grandchildren on this STEM stuff. They're going to be rich, Bitcoin, crypto. You tell them, listen, I've seen these scams before. They don't want to hear what you just, you don't get it, okay? I've seen these scams, right? They're scams. You know that. You know you got grandchildren talking about that Bitcoin, crypto stuff. You're like, what are you talking about? Blockchain and this and that. I'm going to be rich. Okay. And you sit back in your chair and tell them, okay, I've been down this path before. You'll see. Am I right? Y'all got grandkids into that Bitcoin stuff? Crypto? Good. Oh, you got them talking about that stuff? I don't know what that stuff is, to be honest with you. I stay away from it. It's a scam. I stay away from it, right? Any other questions?
I think there's a comment online. If you go to the chat.
Here we go. Oh, thank you, Ms. Owens. I appreciate that.
So let's thank Professor Canton for
Thank you.
a fascinating
I'd like to thank my
presentation.
co-pilot right here.
And Pam, of
Appreciate
course.
you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week and get ready for that Super Bowl. Who you got?